This meeting is being recorded. Yes. Okay. Yeah, I think we pretty much have everyone ready to go. I think we're going to get started now. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Invasive Species webinar series. My name is David Dukevich, entomology technician at the Invasive Species Centre, and I will be moderating today. Next slide. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that the Invasive Species Centre honors the long history of the First Nation, Inuit, and Métis people on our lands, or on the lands known as Canada, and strive to show respect to their ancestors, their communities, and them individually. We greatly appreciate the significance of the lands, water, and all living things, and offer our gratitude to the Indigenous people for their care, their teachings about our earth. Our relationship with Indigenous communities are important, and we will continue to listen and learn how we can be in a good relationship with Indigenous people, the lands, and the water, and living things, and act accordingly. The Invasive Species Centre respectively acknowledges that our head office is located in the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, the Batchewana, and Garden River First Nations, as well as the longtime settlement of the Métis people in the Robertson-Erie Treaty area. Next slide. The Invasive Species Centre is a not-for-profit organization that mobilizes action against invasive species that harm the environment, the economy, and society. Next slide. We've got a lot of great invasive species resources on our website, which includes species profiles, best management practices, and more. So check that out at www.invasivespeciescentre.ca to learn more. Next slide. You can also sign up on our homepage for our newsletter, our bi-weekly media scan, and event invitations like webinars and upcoming webinars, which you can hear all about with our newsletter. Next slide. The ISC has launched an Invasive Species Center, or the Invasive Species Training Program. This offers virtual courses on topics relating to invasive species. We currently have 4 courses available which focus on different forest invasives, but we are releasing new content regularly, so stay tuned for that. Make sure you check out our website and sign up for related updates, and we'll tell you when the new courses are available. Before I start today's webinar, we have a couple housekeeping things I'd like to mention. If you have any questions, please feel free to write them down at any time and just add them in the question and answer chat box. So if there's a Q&A box, please put them in the question and answer box there. And then if you have any technical difficulties, please type them in the chat and I can address those in the chat. If you are having more technical difficulties and you need us to email you any information, we can do that. Please provide your email address. We also have closed caption available if you would like to listen that way or read that way. So that can be found in the closed caption button on your taskbar. Lastly, there is a very brief survey at the end of the webinar. If you'd like to take some time to fill that out, we greatly appreciate that. So today's webinar is titled Reaping What We Sow, Black Ash Preservation Through Seed Collection, and I am pleased to introduce our speaker, Vince Tassa. Vince, next slide. Thank you. Vince Tassa is a program development coordinator at the Invasive Species Centre, where he works primarily with terrestrial and forest invasives. His role is to deliver public outreach events, develop educational resources, collaborations with external partners, and much more. He oversees the Invasive Species Centre Emerald Ash Borer and Ash Tree Preservation Project. This is a new initiative aimed at mitigating the impacts of emerald ash borer on surviving ash trees, with a focus on black ash and species at risk. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Vince, and I'll pop back up after to take questions. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, David, for the introduction. Can we hear me okay? Just if I can get a quick confirmation on that.
Yep, you're good to go.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm just going to turn off my video for the presentation portion, and then you guys will see me again at the end for the Q&A. All right. Yeah. So thank you everyone for joining today. I'm really excited to discuss the new initiative that we're working on here at the Invasive Species Center, but as well to talk about the emerald ash borer, the connection with black ash, and it being a species at risk. Yeah, so without further ado, the title again is Reaping What We Sow, Black Ash Preservation Through Seed Collection. So just to provide a little overview, again, I'm going to be doing an introduction about the emerald ash borer, giving an introduction to black ash, invasive species and that connection to species at risk, because they go hand in hand, black ash specifically as a species at risk. Then I'll be going over the importance of seed collection, particularly for black ash preservation. Just going to touch upon the Government of Ontario's response strategy and how we are complementing their strategy with our initiative, and then the next steps moving forward and how each of you, for those who are interested, can get involved and help out. All right, so jumping into the emerald ash borer, I'm sure many people are really familiar with this particular species. It's one that's been around for a while now here in North America. But just to give a little refresher on this species, so it's an invasive wood-boring beetle that is native to northeastern Asia. It is believed to have been introduced through infested wood packaging material in the early 1990s, but it was first officially detected in 2002, first in Detroit and then here in Canada in Windsor, Ontario. So it is considered one of the most damaging invasive insects to ever reach Canada. It has been detected in a total of 5 provinces across Canada and more than 30 states in the United States. It attacks all species of ash trees in North America, so those being white ash, green ash, black ash, pumpkin ash, and blue ash. None of the ash species, unfortunately, are able to escape the grips of the emerald ash borer. And since its introduction, it has killed millions of ash trees in both natural forested areas and within municipalities and cities. It causes large-scale mortality within the first 4 to 10 years once it has arrived. So unfortunately, it does cause a lot of harm within a relatively short time period. But once it is introduced, it is a species that is very difficult and costly to manage, and it is one that has costed municipalities that have dealt with the emerald ash borer upwards of a few millions of dollars to deal with it. So whenever we're talking about invasive species, obviously prevention is the key. So we can prevent them from even from ever being introduced and then having to deal with it afterwards. So just very quickly to go over the life cycle of the emerald ash borer. So once it has arrived and they begin their mating process in the early spring, they will then begin to lay their eggs on the bark of ash trees within the crevices and cracks. And then once the larvae emerge from the eggs, they will bore their way through the bark and into the sapwood of the tree. So that's the living tissue of the tree that is immediately underneath the bark that is responsible for transporting nutrients and water from the roots up to the leaves. And from there, they will form what are called pupal chambers, and they will overwinter. And then it's during this time, actually in the larval stage, that the most damage occurs while they are feeding on the live tissue and developing underneath the bark. So as the tree becomes more infested with the emerald ash borer and more of the larvae begin to feed through the living tissue, it eventually disrupts or cuts off the flow of nutrients and disrupts the flow, and eventually over time killing the tree. But from them, the larvae will begin the process of pupation, where they will further mature into adults. And then once they are adults, they will chew their way out through the bark of the tree, leaving their characteristic D-shape exit holes. And that occurs in the late spring, and they're able to fly immediately afterward. They'll typically fly up to the canopy of the tree and begin feeding on the foliage. And then they will begin to mate and start the cycle all over again. So this is just it's a nice graphic that neatly summarizes what I was just saying there, but like essentially just going through all those stages of the life cycle of the emerald ash borer again. So some signs and symptoms of EAB, just to familiarize everyone with how to be able to recognize an ash tree that has been infested with the emerald ash borer. The first one being, this is one of the ones that's most commonly known, but those characteristic S-shaped larval feeding galleries. So those serpentine kind of shaped lines that you will find directly under the bark of ash trees. So usually if you see bark that is peeling and you were to pull it back, that's something that you would first notice. Another symptom as well, I had mentioned in the previously there. So those D-shaped exit holes, they look like a capital letter D that is tilted onto its side. So if you see that's a telltale sign that adult EAB have emerged from the tree. Another one as well is if you're looking at a tree, an overall unhealthy appearance, right? So the tree, it's obviously missing foliage in the crown and just kind of has that overall unhealthy appearance. The presence of what are called epicormic shoots. So essentially, these are dormant buds within the stem of the tree, and once the tree is under stress, they begin to sprout out. So these aren't new branches. It's actually the tree that is trying to survive. And again, we call those the epicormic shoots, and they typically grow along the main stem of the tree, and you can also see them growing off of larger main branches as well. And as the larvae feed underneath the bark of the tree and that living tissue, the tissue will begin to die and the bark can separate from the tree itself. And then it oftentimes causes these cracks and crevices to occur. So if you see that also might be an indication. And then this picture here, what it shows is it's an increase in woodpecker activity. So as there are more larvae underneath the bark of the tree, woodpecker, they try to get to it and feed on the larvae. And so as they're attaching to the tree, their feet actually scrape off sections of the bark. And so that picture there depicts the bark that has been scraped off just from the feet of the woodpecker as they're beginning to feed on the tree. And this bottom picture here, so it's just to distinguish between woodpecker feeding holes and the EAB exit hole. Again, the hole that's on the left that is highlighted in green, that's your characteristic D-shaped exit hole, not to be confused with a woodpecker feeding hole that is on the right. So an increase in that woodpecker activity, if you are noticing more of those holes on an ash tree, yes, that could indicate the presence of emerald ash borer. So this map here, just to give a view of the distribution of emerald ash borer across North America. So the colored sections on the map, these are the different ranges of the main native ash species in Canada. So white ash, green ash, and black ash. And then in yellow, those are the areas where emerald ash borer has been detected. So across Ontario or across Canada and the United States. And this map here is just to highlight the regulated areas where emerald ash borer has been detected in Canada. So the emerald ash borer, like other invasive pests, are regulated by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. So these areas that are highlighted in yellow are the regulated areas where phytosanitary protocols are in place, such as movement restriction. So just from these areas, the movement of ash material like wood and other parts of the tree shouldn't be transported from place to place. But just to highlight, and you can see there as well, they are in place currently in Thunder Bay and Winnipeg and as far west as Vancouver. So just quickly to go over some of the impacts of the emerald ash borer. So whenever we talk about invasive species, there's always three lenses that we like to focus on. Those three being the ecological impacts, the economic, and the social. So ecologically, obviously, it has killed many native ash trees across the country. But with the death of the ash trees, it comes with changes in the overall ecological makeup of the forests and environments that they inhabit. But it also impacts other living things that rely on these ash trees, whether it's for habitat, for food, or shelter. Economically, I had mentioned earlier that there's a high cost of tree removal in municipalities. So there's a lot of costs that there's a lot of effort and resources that need to be devoted in order to manage and remove trees that have been infected by the emerald ash borer. And as well with other tree species, there's the commercial component to it, right? So we're able to extract value from harvesting the trees just for different uses such as lumber, pulp, and furniture, etc. And then socially as well. So you can imagine that in public spaces where you have dead standing ash trees, these become a hazard, right? Where our head office is currently located here in Sault Ste. Marie, we're close to a major park called Bellevue Park. And there were mature ash trees that had to be removed. They were very close to a popular walking trail. So as you can imagine, you don't want people walking underneath these trees that are dead standing. If a branch were to fall, for example, that could potentially be a hazard. So yeah, so there's definitely those social impacts as well, right? And it does impact the overall aesthetics and beauty and enjoyment of natural spaces. You can see that picture there in the top left-hand corner. Obviously, you can tell that those trees are under distress, and it's just not very visually pleasing, and that is something that does have to be taken into consideration as well. So in terms of management options, there are a variety of different tools in our arsenal to combat the emerald ash borer. One of them is chemical. This one, it's not used widespread, and it is very costly to do. So it is typically reserved for high value trees or individual mature trees that are in need of saving. And this, and again, I had mentioned it's costly, and it's something that has to be done over the course of several years. It's not a single treatment. It's not like a one and done kind of deal. It's something that has to be done multiple times. Another one is the mechanical removal. So obviously cutting down trees that have been heavily infested. The example I had given again here in Sault Ste. Marie, that park, we had to remove the trees, right? So we couldn't just leave those dead standing. And again, that involves a lot of time and resources and yeah. But one that I really wanted to highlight is the use of it's biocontrol. So we're actually able to use nature to help us with a nature-related problem, right? One of the characteristics of invasive species is that in the new environments where they are found, they often lack natural predators, right, that are able to keep their populations in check and prevent them from spreading and overtaking other species, right? And so researchers have actually identified, I believe it's approximately 4 species of parasitoid wasps that actually rely on the emerald ash borer in their native range to complete the reproductive cycle. And so these wasps were brought over here. We actually raised them here in the building that we're currently in. So they're raised and they're released in areas where there are known infestations of the emerald ash borer. And so they will seek out specifically the emerald ash borer, and they target and attack the emerald ash borer at their different life stages. And it's just one of the unique and interesting ways that we're actually able to manage the spread of EAB. So yeah, just wanted to highlight that interesting biocontrol method that is available. So from here, moving on, I'm going to give an introduction into black ash, which is the star of the show here. So black ash, so it's a relatively long-lived species of hardwood tree. It can live up to 200 to 300 years old. Globally, it is only found here in North America. So approximately just a little bit more of half of its global range occurs within the country of Canada, with about a quarter of the species total range in our province of Ontario, where we currently are. It is the ash species that is found further north than any other ash species, and there's something interesting about that that I'll touch upon a little bit later as well. But something for a consideration for future implications for the emerald ash borer. So black ash is considered a foundational or keystone species, typically found in wetland environments or in environments where soils are saturated for most or all of the year. Um, and they play important roles specifically in regulating the hydrology for carbon sequestration, but their canopy also provides shade and habitat for other species. So its loss would negatively impact the wetland and riparian forest ecosystems and the health and function of the environments that they're found in. And it's also referred to as an indicator species, right? So in environments where black ash is typically found, their presence typically indicates that it's a healthy and thriving ecosystem. And in environments where we can see that there is an absence or that has been a die-off of black ash trees, it could indicate that there's something wrong with there's something going on in the ecosystem that requires a little bit further investigation. So in terms of black ash uses, so the wood for black ash, because of where it grows, it's quite unique in that it is flexible and strong, just being able to tolerate those wet environments. So the wood itself is quite porous. Because of that, it makes it very pliable, but it's also very strong. But it makes it a valuable resource, for example, for making things such as tool handles, for furniture, for cabinets and flooring. And an interesting thing as well, it can also be used for electric guitar bodies. And one of the things I wanted to really focus on for this presentation is something that was new for me when I took on this project. It was not something that I was aware of, and it's something that I've been learning over the course of doing this work. But there's a very strong and important culture and importance and connection of black ash to many Indigenous people across North America. So it's a species that's been used for centuries to make woven baskets, snowshoe frames, for example, canoe ribs, bows, lacrosse sticks, and other items, and also used as a fuel wood. Or also used as fuel wood. And there, that picture there on the screen is actually one that has been created by an individual that is close to us here in Sault Ste. Marie. So it's really it's really interesting to see to actually be able to see that product in person. And yeah, so it's, as I had mentioned, it's the black ash basketry. It is an important part of the history, culture, and the economies of many Indigenous peoples. So the decline in black ash populations, it impacts the knowledge and skill transfer to future generations. And the loss of this species would be the loss of this important cultural practice. And this for myself, it hit particularly close to home. I just within my family, I have my own very strong cultural connections and traditions that we do, and I couldn't imagine any one of those things being lost. It's definitely something that is closely tied with my identity, my cultural identity, but it's something that's also caused me to pause and reflect a little bit as well about the importance and the meaning of traditions and why they exist in the first place. And ultimately, these traditions and cultural practices, they are what tether the generations across space and time, right? Things change over time, but the core practice and the product is what remains. And it's a constant that serves to unify the young and the old, the dead and the living. And it's for us to carry on the legacy of those that have come before us, appreciating and honoring their labors for survival. And it just serves as a reminder for us to not take for granted what we have. So just something I really wanted to touch upon strongly is that the loss of the species, or the potential loss of the species, yes, of course, there's the ecological impact and the role and everything that it serves across the environment, but also a reminder that this is something that there are people that still rely on this today, and there is a very strong connection associated with this. So really quickly here, I'm going to go over some key black ash characteristics and kind of how to differentiate them from some of our other very common native ash species. So their leaves, like all other ash trees, so they're a compound leaf as opposed to a simple leaf. So the compound leaf, the entire leaf is made up of a bunch of smaller leaflets, and so those all together make up the entire leaf. So there's just a comparison between black ash and green ash on the screen, and on first impression, they look really similar, but it's not until we investigate a little bit further that we're able to find those distinct characteristics that differentiate the species from one another. So one of the main ways, and this is one of the one that I think I use the most to differentiate, is I look at where the leaflets attach to the main central stalk of the leaf. Black ash is what is referred to as sessile. So the leaflets they attach directly to the central stalk itself, whereas other ash species like green ash, they have what's called a petiolule, or a short stem that connects the leaflet to the central stalk. So if you see the absence of that and the leaflets are growing directly off the central stalk, that's usually a good indicator that it's black ash. But with all ID characteristics, you should be taking multiple characteristics into account and not just looking at one thing. So another way to help distinguish is to look at the bark. So the bark of black ash, it's typically thin and scaly, and I find incredibly easy to rub off of the tree if you just kind of brush your hand over top. I like to take off one scale and look at the other side, and it usually has this orangish tan color. Um, that seems to be absent on other ash species. So if we look at the bark of green ash, for example, it's much more tightly secured to the trunk of the tree, and I find it much more rough, and it's harder to remove, unlike black ash. But one of the main tells, if we're looking at the twig, so this is really great before the leaf dropout, but once the leaves have emerged, you can also see this, but I find it's not as obvious. It's better during the winter time or in the fall when leaves have dropped. But if you take a look at the twigs, there is a gap between the terminal bud and the first pair of lateral buds that are growing opposite each other. So that gap you will see on black ash, on green ash, for example. Um, uh, the lateral buds are pressed firmly against the terminal bud. And then if we look at the seeds themselves, so black ash seeds, they're flat and their base is slightly tapered, as opposed to green ash seeds, for example, that have a cylindrical base, and they're greatly tapered as opposed to black ash. And with all ash species, there's that opposite branch arrangement, right? So the branches growing directly opposite each other. So when you take all of these characteristics into account, it should be a good way to help you differentiate between black ash and other ash species. So the range and distribution here, I just have a map that I pulled from my naturalist. Those are public records of observations that are research grade, so just to show the distribution. And this other map that I pulled from the species at risk assessment performed by COSOIC. That red line at the top showing the projected or predicted furthest northern extent of the range of black ash, and then the black dots that are actual mapped occurrences of black ash trees across Canada. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about invasive species and species at risk. So they go hand in hand. The United Nations actually ranks invasive species as a top 5 driver of global species decline. Invasive species, sorry, can infect, they can wound, they can parasitize, or directly kill species, specifically species at risk, further contributing to their decline. Invasive species often change the species composition and diversity, altering how ecosystems function, right? They cause disruptions in some capacity. They reduce critical habitat that species of risk need to survive. Oftentimes, species at risk require very specific habitats. So invasions by invasive species and altering in some small capacity can really have a major detriment to species that are already struggling to survive. So they're quite vulnerable to the habitat change, and like I had mentioned, especially those endemic species. And they reduce biodiversity by outcompeting desirable native species. So ultimately, when we're talking about invasive species and species at risk and the loss of species and species decline, the thing that I really want to drive home is that the loss of biodiversity is biosecurity, right? So when we're talking about the resiliency of ecosystems, especially when invasive species often create perfect conditions for invasion by subsequent species, but also biodiversity and that biosecurity being a key component in resiliency to things like climate change, to experiencing things like drought, or any other types of natural disturbances. And the first time I ever heard of that biodiversity as biosecurity, it was from Paul Stamets, famous mycologist. So I just wanted to give him credit for that, not that he was the one that necessarily coined the term, but just to remember that biodiversity is biosecurity. So black ash, particularly as a species at risk. So of the ash species, black ash is the most susceptible and severely affected by the emerald ash borer, and it is the emerald ash borer that is actually the primary driver of species decline. And what's really interesting as well is that black ash is a species at risk, but it is also essential for the survival for another species at risk, notably the Canadian sphinx moth, right? So when we're talking about species decline of one species, it's, it should go without saying that there's the impacts that it has to other species that rely on it, right? So this is a species at risk that has a close connection with another listed species at risk. So just kind of even more incentive there to want to protect this from going extinct. So the emerald ash borer currently is the greatest threat to black ash survival. It's predicted that there will be more than a 70% decline within the next 100 years, and that's primarily due to the warming climate due to climate change. So I had mentioned that black ash is the species of ash tree in North America that is found furthest north, and so there is, or there has been a like a range limit. For the emerald ash borer, so because of the climate and colder temperatures, it was believed that emerald ash borer couldn't expand further north. But due to the warming climate, that this might not be the case anymore, and it might actually open up an opportunity for emerald ash borer to spread further north and invade forests containing black ash where it normally might not have been able to before. So it's really this change in climate and the expansion of the emerald ash borer further north into areas where it previously would have been more difficult for it to be, as kind of the main predictive factor for its major decline within the next 100 years. But the emerald ash borer, so it affects both mature trees and younger saplings. And this is problematic because it can actually kill black ash trees before they're able to reach maturity, where they produce seed, right? So yeah, just poses a challenge for sure. So it was added to the species at risk in Ontario list in 2022. Its current status in Ontario is endangered under the Endangered Species Act, where it does receive protections through prohibitions. And this also includes the protection of its habitat. The black ash habitat is defined as a radial distance of 30 meters from the stem of every black ash. And the prohibition exemptions that currently exist. So if black ash is not located in a municipality or territorial district, so there's a list of these. These are typically places where the emerald ash borer has already invaded. If the stem height is less than 1.37 meters, so if it's right, or is smaller than 8 centimeters in dBH. Or if black ash trees have been assessed by a professional forester as being unhealthy, they are exempt from the protections under the Endangered Species Act. So now I'm going to touch upon the importance of seed collection for conservation. So this is one of the tools in the arsenal when it comes to conserving species, especially the conservation of species, especially species at risk. So it's an ex situ conservation tool. So it's a tool that offsite. It ensures that the seeds are available when they're needed and they're away from potential risks out in the natural world. So it is an effective means of preserving and safeguarding black ash genetics, especially with potential EAB resistance. So those are referred to as lingering ash trees across the landscape in areas that have been invaded by the emerald ash borer that have survived. So there's the potential there that we think that there might be some type of genetic resistance that is worthwhile capturing, right, for future preservation efforts. So a good way to think of this is it's like a genetic insurance policy. So the National Tree Seed Centre, which is one of our project partners with this, so they're Canada's only national seed bank preserving forest genetics across the country, located out in New Brunswick. And ideally, collecting seeds from areas that have not yet collected from, and as many different eco-districts as possible to preserve the full range of species genetic diversity, and ensuring the resiliency of fewer restoration and conservation efforts. But the challenge for us is that black ash produces low quantities of seeds most of the years, and it has a period of of up to 8 years until it actually produces large crops of seed. And so when we're talking about invasion of EAB, it being able to kill trees within 4 to 10 years of it invading an area, and then they're not necessarily being a viable or large production of seed crop within 8 years. So it's really time sensitive and something that we want to be able to capitalize on when we are able to. And so the National Tree Seed Center predicts the next bumper crop to take place in the summer of 2026 or 2027. So it's a narrow collection window and kind of really a race against time from the expanding EAB invasion. And just to kind of go over seed collection. So typically, it's when you go to a black ash tree and you find that a seed producing black ash tree, you'll lay a tarp underneath on the forest floor, and then using an extendable pole pruner, you will snip off the branches containing the seed, and they'll fall down onto the tarp below. And then you can collect those seeds. So a good rule of thumb is if you're able to fill a coffee container full of seed. But we're looking typically to collect anywhere between 2 to 6 liters as per the National Tree Seed Center guidelines, and placed into a paper bag. And then those seeds should be allowed to dry by placing those bags in a well ventilated area before shipping. So the Ontario government does have their response and recovery strategy divided into short and long-term goals. So in areas that are currently they're under current or imminent threat of EAB, to reduce the severity and mitigate the impacts of the threat of EAB, preserve genetic diversity, and maintain or improve habitat conditions. And in areas where they're not currently or imminent, there is not the current or imminent threat of EAB, to impose resilience of black ash populations and habitat, reduce the severity and mitigate EAB impacts, preserve the genetic diversity currently present, and maintain abundance and distribution of black ash where feasible. And then their long-term goals to reduce the severity of threat of EAB and other threats to black ash, and when and where feasible and appropriate, to restore black ash in areas where locally extirpated or experience significant declines. So how we align with the Ontario's response is through this new initiative that we've launched through the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, through their Species at Risk Stewardship Program, to mitigate the impacts from EAB on existing black ash populations. So the project aims to increase public awareness of risks and impacts of EAB in Ontario, the latest and ongoing research and importance of strong genetic and seed diversity for ash species, including species at risk like black ash. But the main objective for this project is to coordinate a community action network, which I will discuss momentarily. So just over the next few years, so we really want to increase and continue education on the importance of species at risk conservation and preservation, to increase the understanding of the current state and importance of biocontrol. I had mentioned previously in the presentation about the use of the parasitoid wasps, and then to continue distributing the educational resources, social media campaigns, hosting in-person and virtual events and workshops, and attending and presenting at conferences, annual forum, and new webpage and a host of other things that we plan to do. But really what we're wanting to do is to register volunteers as part of the Community Action Network, in partnership with the National Tree Seed Centre and the Ontario Forest Research Institute, to help with seed collection efforts. And then lastly, we will be continuing to connect with Indigenous communities across the province to listen, learn, and integrate their teachings into our outreach work. So this community action network that we are coordinating, so it's a volunteer effort to assist with black ash seed collection. Something I do want to stress, though, is that those that are interested in joining, they must be registered through the Invasive Species Center to be exempt from the Endangered Species Act prohibitions or restrictions that are in place. The registration page is currently under development and will be online hopefully within the next month or so, so that those that are interested in volunteering can sign up. Yeah, but really, we're wanting to get out and to train people across the province how to effectively collect ash seeds, and we're going to accomplish this through a series of in-person and online workshops, hosting webinars such as this one here. And there will be seed collection kits that will be made available to send out to registered volunteers. So that's something that it's optional, but we do encourage volunteers to take advantage of. And then once the seeds are collected, they'll be sent to us here at the Invasive Species Centre for further processing and shipment to the National Tree Seed Centre out in New Brunswick. Part of the project, and this is important as well, is that volunteers are asked to document the tree locations and encouraged to join the iNaturalist project, which I'll talk a little bit more in the coming slides. So it's really important that we focus on seed producing surviving black ash trees in areas where the emerald ash borer has been, to really look for those lingering ash across the landscape, and see if they are producing seed, and to collect those seeds because it could indicate that there is some type of genetic resistance to emerald ash borer invasion. So something that we want to capitalize on. But what's important too is to collect seed from black ash across different eco districts where it is growing. The different eco districts all have unique characteristics to them, and black ash are unique in those different eco districts by evolving to adapt to the different climate, the soil hydrology of those eco districts. So if we're able to collect a greater diversity of genetics of black ash, that's a key component to the long-term preservation of the species. Yeah, and its restoration. And yeah, so just capturing black ash from as many different eco districts as possible. It just ensures that we capture these local unique traits from each of these areas, which is just vital for future restoration, and just having access to that greater genetic variation. So over the next 3 years, so we are in year 2 of the project. The first year was really connecting with our partners, getting the word out, hosting workshops and training sessions, developing new resources, and getting out and doing some black ash scouting and mapping. So year 2 is it's a lot of continuation, continuing to host workshops and training sessions, continue with our digital media campaigns, creation of a how-to video, and launching our website and ongoing web page updates. Continuing to get more volunteers to register for the project, and to begin the seed collection, and then sending out to the National Tree Seed Centre. Um, and then moving on to the third year as well, continuing to host those workshops, training sessions, and webinars, continue seed collection efforts, and to share the program success. Yeah, and just keep people updated with how things are going. Each year of the project, we will be attending the Anishinaabe Nation Lands and Resources Forum to present and discuss with individuals there as well, and hopefully make meaningful connections to complement existing efforts. So we've created a new AB fact sheet. We've attended and presented at NOFNIC and Thunder Bay, and the Anishinaabe Nation Lands and Resources Forum in North Bay. We've acquired seed collection equipment, which is available for volunteer use, although I'll be honest, at the moment, I haven't quite figured exactly how to distribute that to volunteers, but it's something that is in the work. Just know that there are tools available, but that's currently to be determined. We've created a black ash seed collection protocol quick reference guide that will be included as part of the volunteer collection kit. It's in the final stage of revision and will be sent out for graphic design, but we're hoping to have that ready sometime in the summer before seed collection will begin in mid to late September and into early August. We hosted a workshop at Science North in Sudbury, which went really well, and we hope to continue hosting a series of workshops in the coming years. And we've launched the iNaturalist project, so it's titled the Ontario Black Ash Inventory for documenting black ash occurrences across the province. Scouting and mapping in Thunder Bay and Algoma have been completed, but there will be some some more scouting to be completed. So just to give you a quick overview of the new fact sheet that was created, it's a new resource available for the events that we attend. It's a summary of EAB, including latest available information, how it impacts the EAB impacts ash species, specifically black ash, including how to ID, the signs and symptoms, and it's available online as well as a hard copy for send out. You just have to reach out to us to let us know, and we can ship out some copies to you guys as well. This is not the final product of the final version of the seed collection protocol, but we're hoping for it to be something like this. Again, this is a resource that will be free to use and free to acquire. That will be part of the seed collection volunteer kits that will be ready to send out. And it's based on the Seeds of Ontario and Eastern Canada manual for tree and shrub crop forecasting and collection created by the Forest Gene Conservation Association. Yeah, but it has everything, including black ash ID, all the materials and tools that you need for seed collection, how to properly collect, contain, and ship the seeds, and more information there. The iNaturalist project that we've launched so far. So we have currently 58 people that have joined, but it is currently pulling black ash observations from across the province, beginning as far back, I believe, as August. But this is something that is a requirement for volunteers who are interested in collecting seed, that they do join the project and map the locations of the black ash that they are collecting seed from. And those who are just interested in documenting that might not necessarily want to get involved in the seed collection, we encourage as well to join the project and just help us document black ash occurrences across the province. And just to share a couple of pictures with everyone from the workshop that was hosted at Science North in Sudbury, it was a great success. It was wonderful to get to meet with a bunch of different people, as well as connect with a couple of members of Indigenous communities to hear about their own stories and how the emerald ash borer has impacted their communities directly. So again, we hope to host a series of future workshops. We really encourage people who are interested to attend. I'd love to meet you guys in person and yeah, and discuss and see how we can work together to solve this issue here. And lastly, working with Indigenous communities. So this is a big component of the project as well that we're hoping to get further into. But really, we want to provide an opportunity to support and complement any existing efforts that are currently underway for black ash conservation, and to gain a better understanding of the cultural and historical significance of black ash for Indigenous people, to listen and learn from communities that have been directly affected by the emerald ash borer impacts, and to help share with others, and exploring and identifying ways to incorporate traditional ecological knowledge into our conservation effort, and implement a two-eyed seeing approach to the restoration of black ash. And so what's next? Launching the project webpage and volunteer registration form. So stay tuned for that. People that are interested in helping out. So yeah, like I had mentioned, there will be an official volunteer registration form that does need to be completed online in order to participate in seed collection efforts. The printout of the seed collection protocol and assembly of the volunteer kits for send out. We're going to be creating a how-to seed collection video, which will be a resource available on our website and on YouTube for those interested in learning how to collect seed. They'll be able to view that video. Conduct training for seed collection in this coming fall. So again, I had mentioned we're looking forward to hosting another series of in-person workshops and training sessions. So it's so definitely keep an ear out for that. And for myself and for members here at the ISC who are interested in helping out, it's continue to do some scouting and mapping, and to begin doing seed collection in the area here, beginning mid-September to October. And so again, how you can help. This is my call to action here. To register as a volunteer seed collector through our EAB and Black Ash initiative. We need your help to safeguard Black Ash genetic diversity. One thing you can do is to continue to familiarize yourself with Black Ash ID, learn and recognize EAB signs and symptoms, Submit any reports of a suspected EAB finds to EdMaps. It's just another platform similar to iNaturalist, but this one is specific to invasive species. But it's a great way of documenting occurrences to get a better understanding of the distribution of the emerald ash borer. Please join the Ontario Black Ash Inventory iNaturalist project and help us document black ash locations and to help spread awareness of the impacts of the emerald ash borer on ash trees, especially black ash, and the importance of seed collection for long-term preservation. So kind of my closing remarks here for everyone and looking forward into the future. I truly believe in this, that we reap what we sow. So our efforts today will shape the survival of black ash for future generations to come. So collecting black ash seeds today may help preserve the species, offering the potential for future restoration efforts. And something really interesting to think about, it's a bit of that long-term vision, but something that also kind of hits home, close to home, I'm sure, for many people, that the seeds collected now are not necessarily for us, but they're for our grandchildren to grow in the future. And this is a team effort, right? So by working together and sowing seeds of change today, we can reap lasting positive change for tomorrow. And with that, I would like to thank everybody for joining in, listening to the presentation, and I'd like to open the floor for any questions that you might have.
All right, thank you, Vince. Yeah, there's a couple questions here in the question box. Some people have repeated some questions, so I'll uh, I'll summarize, put some of those together. One of the main ones that were on the list is how can people get involved with the black ash seed collection? So you had mentioned the black ash um, inventory on iNaturalist, but some people are wondering about how do they get involved with the seed collection.
Yep. So for now, so like I had mentioned, that we will have a volunteer registration form online on our website. It's currently under construction at the moment, but we're hoping to have that available within the next month or so. But in the meantime, until that registration form is available, please reach out to me directly at the Invasive Species Centre. So my email, I'll say it out loud, but maybe Dave, if you can put that into the chat for our listeners here. It's Tassa at invasivespeciescenter.ca. If for some reason you don't have, and actually I took the screen off, my apologies, guys, I had it up on the screen. You can also send an email to our info line, and that will be directed to me directly. But yeah, so in the meantime, please feel free to reach out to me directly here at the Invasive Species Center. We'll connect. I would love to even do like a one-on-one video chat just to kind of talk and kind of gauge where we're at and see what kind of things that we can do and just how you can get further involved.
Okay. So the next question was about lingering ash trees. Are there any projects that you know of that are looking at lingering ash and genetic resistance in the population?
So I'm aware of a lingering ash project that is spearheaded by the Forest Gene Conservation Association. I don't have the exact specifics on that, but there are initiatives currently underway by different organizations looking specifically at lingering ash across the landscape.
Okay. I think there's a couple more uh, research being done by Natural Resource Canada. Isabelle Aubin is also doing some research on the genetic population and lingering ash resistance, as well as Den McCullough's group in Michigan, out of the university in Michigan there. So there are a couple projects on the go.
Okay, that's awesome.
Um, how do you register for the program? Oh, this is an interesting one. Is you had on your screen you had the differences between black ash and green ash seeds, but is there resources that people can go to find the differences between the black ash, the white ash, the green ash seeds that are available? Can you provide some resources?
Off the top of my head, I apologize. I don't have a resource off the top of my head, but I know that there are resources available. If you go to Google and type that in, I believe the National Tree Seed Center might have some resources on their website. Don't quote me on that. My apologies. But there definitely are resources online that that help with being able to differentiate between the species for sure.
Yeah, and I think the um, ash tree seed protocol that you had mentioned in your slides should be coming out shortly as
Yes.
well. The next question is about predicting the bumper crop years. Is that an estimate for the Ontario region, or is that the Great Lakes region in general? How is that
That's a,
estimated?
Yeah, that's a really good question that I don't have the answer to, unfortunately, but I would be happy to look into that and follow up with who that individual is. Um, I don't want to make an assumption. I only want to go off of what we know. So, yeah, I don't have the answer for you off the top of my head. My apologies for that.
Yeah. Okay. I think the last bumper crop year was 2019, was the black ash bumper crop. So I think essentially going 10 years from that is with the black ash uh, seed predicted. And that's can be found in the seed survey books that can be found online as well. I think the Forest Gene Conservation Association has that information uh, for that information. Um, oh, here's a good question for you. When do black ash seeds drop in the canopy? When's the best time to collect?
Yeah, so mid-September into the beginning of October. I believe there's a window of a couple of weeks there for optimal collection. But yeah, mid-September and into October.
Okay.
And you want to be collecting the seeds, they need to be collected directly from the tree. It is never recommended to collect seeds that are on the ground that have already fallen. Those need to be that have they need to be collected directly from the tree.
Another question is about the longevity of seeds. Um, so how long can the seeds be after collected? How long can the seeds be viable? And is essentially in the environment, but also will cold storage allow this to allow the seeds to be viable for longer periods of time?
Yeah, so my understanding is that the seeds themselves are viable for a couple of years, but with cold storage, we're able to preserve them for decades. So once they are sent to the National Tree Seed Center, they will undergo. I'm not sure of the exact process of it. I can't speak on their behalf, but it will undergo some type of like deep freeze, long-term preservation. The seed will be viable for decades to come. There is a question that I see here in the Q&A box that I do want to address as well. Laura Curran here asked, do you only want naturally occurring black ash or any planted trees too? No, we only want naturally occurring black ash from across the landscape, not ones that have been planted. Um, so yeah, just to clarify that.
All right. So most of the other questions are pretty much variations of what we've already went over. But I think we're getting close to our lunch break right now, so I'm gonna hold this at that. I did put your email address in the oh, I actually didn't post it to everyone. I just posted to one person, so
Right. And
I'll put that in
sorry,
the
David, if I can make one final remark for anyone that has already emailed, if I haven't responded, I apologize. I'm sure people are familiar with just kind of getting lost with emails and things, so that's not something personal. I didn't look at the email and say I don't want to respond. I promise I will get back to any of the emails that have reached out. But just one last thank you very much. We are really passionate about this project, and we do really want to contribute our part in helping to preserve black ash for years to come. And again, so anyone that does want to get involved, please reach out to me directly. The registration page isn't available yet online, and I'm sorry we're a little bit behind on that, but we're hoping to get caught up and get that available as soon as possible. But reach out to me directly, and yeah, I'd love to chat with you guys and discuss a little bit more about what we're doing here and to see how you can help us out. So thank you guys so much for tuning in today.
Perfect. Thank you once again to Vince for his presentation, and stay tuned for our next presentation and webinar series, which will be announced in May. So that will be announced shortly. And you can find out that information at www.invasivespeciescentre.ca, and we'll be able to get you that information. If you have any more lingering questions for Vince, I had put his email address in the chat box, or if you want, you can get in touch with the Invasive Species Center at info@invasivespeciescentre.ca, and you can also find those emails on our website as well. So thank you very much to Vince once again, and everyone have a great afternoon, and hopefully in September you'll be collecting ash seed for
Yes.
yes. All right. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much.
Bye.